Not everyone wants what's best for you, and that's not paranoia, that's reality. The world is full of people operating from envy, insecurity, manipulation, and self-interest, and most of them won't announce themselves. They won't walk up and tell you they're working against you. They'll smile, they'll nod, they'll stay close. And while you're trusting them, assuming good faith, giving them access, they'll be undermining you, quietly, strategically. And by the time you realize what's happening, the damage is done. The Stoics weren't naive. They understood human nature. They knew that while you should treat people with respect, you shouldn't treat everyone with trust. Trust is earned, and certain behaviors, certain patterns, certain signs tell you exactly who someone is long before they're willing to admit it themselves. Marcus Aurelius dealt with betrayal, conspiracy, and deception at the highest levels. And he survived not by being paranoid, but by being discerning, by watching, by reading people, by knowing when to keep his distance. This isn't about becoming cynical. It's not about suspecting everyone or building walls around yourself. It's about awareness. It's about protecting what you're building. It's about recognizing that your energy, your trust, your focus are valuable, and not everyone deserves access to them. Because when you let the wrong people in, when you ignore the signs that someone is operating from a place of toxicity, you don't just lose time, you lose momentum, you lose peace. Sometimes you lose years. What you're about to hear are the signs, the behaviors, the patterns that tell you someone is not who they're pretending to be, and more importantly, how to respond, not with drama, not with confrontation, but with the quiet, strategic distance that protects you while keeping your integrity intact. Because the goal isn't to expose them, it's to protect yourself, to stay focused, to keep building, and to make sure that the people in your circles are actually contributing to your growth, not secretly working against it. Some of these signs will make you think of specific people. You'll recognize patterns you've been ignoring, and that recognition might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because the cost of ignoring these signs is always higher than the cost of facing them. So let's begin, not with paranoia, with clarity, the kind that keeps you safe without making you bitter. Sign 1. They celebrate your struggles more than your wins. Pay attention to how people react when you share news. When something good happens, when you get a win, when you make progress, watch their face. Watch their energy. Do they light up? Do they genuinely celebrate with you? Or is there a flicker of something else? A tightness around the mouth, a forced smile, a quick pivot to talk about themselves or to downplay what you just shared. And then watch what happens when you struggle, when you fail, when you hit a setback. Do they offer support? Or do they lean in a little too eagerly? Do they seem almost excited? Do they say things like, "I knew that wouldn't work," or "Maybe you should just stick to what you're good at"? That's not concern. That's satisfaction. They're not worried about you. They're relieved, because your struggle makes them feel better about their own stagnation. Envy is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. Envious people won't tell you they're threatened by your growth. They'll disguise it as care, as realism, as looking out for you. But the truth is, your success makes them uncomfortable because it highlights their own inaction. So they root for your failure, not consciously, not overtly, but in the subtle ways they respond, in the questions they ask, in the doubt they plant. Seneca wrote, "Envy is the adversary of the fortunate," and he was right. The people who envy you don't want you to fall all the way. They want you to stay just close enough to them, just struggling enough, just uncertain enough, so they feel less threatened. And when you start rising, when you start pulling away, when your success becomes undeniable, they'll either distance themselves or quietly sabotage. So watch how people react to your wins and your losses, because that reaction tells you everything. Real friends celebrate your wins like they're their own. They support you in your struggles without secret satisfaction. But the ones who can't genuinely celebrate with you, the ones who seem more alive when you're down, watch your back, because they're not in your corner. They're watching from the sidelines, hoping you stay small enough that they don't have to confront their own limitations. Sign 2. They're obsessed with your business, but hide their own. There's a difference between interest and surveillance. Real friends ask about your life because they care. Toxic people ask about your life because they're gathering information. They want to know what you're doing, who you're seeing, what you're building, how much you're making, and they ask in ways that seem innocent, casual, like they're just being friendly. But notice something. They never share the same level of detail about their own life. You tell them your plans, your struggles, your next moves, and they absorb it all. They ask follow-up questions. They seem so interested, but when you ask them the same questions, they deflect. They give vague answers. They change the subject. They're comfortable knowing everything about you, but they guard their own information like it's classified. That's not connection. That's calculation. People who operate like this are either comparing themselves to you constantly, or they're looking for ways to use your information against you. They're measuring their progress against yours. They're looking for ammunition. They're waiting for something they can leverage, criticize, or exploit. And the more you share, the more power you give them. Epictetus taught, first, learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. And part of that wisdom is knowing who deserves your words. Not everyone who asks deserves an answer. Not everyone who shows interest has good intentions. And when someone consistently wants to know your business, but never reveals their own, that asymmetry is a red flag. So watch the people who ask too many questions but answer none. The ones who want your whole story but give you fragments. The ones who seem invested in knowing everything about you but remain a mystery themselves. Because they're not trying to connect, they're trying to collect. And what they collect, they'll eventually use. Maybe to feel superior, maybe to gossip, maybe to sabotage. But either way, they're not your friend. They're your audience. And audiences don't care about you. They care about the show. Protect your information, not because you're secretive, but because you're strategic. Share with people who've earned it, who reciprocate, who've proven they're safe. Everyone else, they get the surface, the pleasantries, the basics, and nothing more. Sign 3. They undermine you in front of others. This one's subtle, because it often comes disguised as a joke. You're in a group setting, you say something, share an idea, tell a story, and someone in that group makes a comment, a little jab, a dismissive remark, something that makes everyone laugh, including you, because you don't want to seem sensitive. But underneath that laugh, you feel it. The disrespect, the attempt to make you look small. That's such a your name thing to say. You would think that. Good luck with that, said with a smile, said in front of others. And if you call it out, you're the problem. You're too sensitive. It was just a joke. But jokes are often how people tell the truth while maintaining deniability. And what they're really saying is, I don't respect you, and I want everyone else to see you the way I do. People who undermine you in public are sending a message. They're testing the waters. They're seeing if they can diminish you without consequences. And if you let it slide, if you laugh it off, if you don't address it, they'll do it again, louder, more often, until they've shaped the group's perception of you into something weaker than who you actually are. Marcus Aurelius dealt with people who smiled to his face and mocked him behind his back. And he wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." He didn't stoop, he didn't engage in the same game, but he also didn't ignore it. He watched, he noted, and he adjusted who had access to him. When someone undermines you publicly, especially repeatedly, you have a few options. You can address it directly, calmly, without emotion. I've noticed you make comments like that often. What's behind it? That puts them on the spot, forces them to either own their behavior or back down, or you can simply distance yourself. Stop including them. Stop giving them opportunities to disrespect you in front of others. Because people who can't respect you in public don't respect you in private either. They're just better at hiding it when it's one-on-one. Watch for the people who diminish you when there's an audience, the ones who need witnesses to their digs, the ones who use humor as a weapon and then hide behind just joking when confronted. They're showing you who they are, believe them, and adjust accordingly. Sign 4. They play both sides. They agree with you when you're alone. They nod, they validate, they say, "You're absolutely right." But then you find out later they said the complete opposite to someone else. They told that person you were wrong. They agreed with them too. They positioned themselves as neutral, as the reasonable one caught in the middle, but really, they're just playing both sides, collecting favor from everyone by never taking a real stance. These are the people who tell you what you want to hear and then do the same with your opposition. They're not loyal. They're opportunistic. They're protecting themselves by never committing, by always having a way out, by making sure that no matter who wins, they're on the winning side. And the cost of that strategy is you. Your trust, your respect, your belief that they actually stand for something. There's a difference between being diplomatic and being duplicitous. Diplomatic people navigate tension with honesty. They can respect different perspectives without betraying either side. But duplicitous people lie to both sides. They create the illusion of alliance with everyone while having loyalty to no one. And when things go wrong, when conflict arises, they'll throw you under the bus without hesitation because they were never really with you to begin with. Seneca warned, "The chief cause of our misery is that we live according to the examples of others." And one of the worst examples you can follow is the person who stands for nothing, who shifts with the wind, who tells you they're on your team but hedges every bet. Because when pressure comes, when you actually need them, they'll be wherever is safest. And that's rarely next to you. Watch for the people who agree with you privately but disappear publicly. The ones who validate your position to your face but won't defend it when you're not in the room. The ones who always seem to come out unscathed in conflicts because they never actually took a side. They're not Switzerland. They're cowards. And cowards don't make good allies. When you discover someone is playing both sides, don't confront them with anger. Just file it, remember it, and stop sharing anything that matters. Stop treating them like they're in your corner, because they're not. They're in their own corner, and they'll sacrifice you the moment it benefits them. Sign 5. They gaslight your reality. You remember a conversation clearly. You know what was said, what was agreed upon, and then later, they deny it. "I never said that. You're remembering wrong. That's not what happened." And they say it with such confidence, such certainty, that for a moment you question yourself. Did I misunderstand? Am I going crazy? That's gaslighting. And it's not an accident. It's a tactic. It's designed to make you doubt your perception, your memory, your sanity. Because when you doubt yourself, you're easier to control. You stop trusting your instincts. You stop calling out bad behavior. You defer to them, to their version of reality, because they've convinced you that yours isn't reliable. People who gaslight you are dangerous, not because they're smarter, but because they're willing to lie with conviction. They're willing to rewrite history to serve their narrative. And over time, if you don't catch it, if you don't trust your own experience, you lose yourself. You become dependent on their version of events. You stop advocating for yourself because you're no longer sure you're right. Epictetus said, "If you do not wish to be prone to anger, do not feed the habit. Give it nothing which may tend to its increase." And gaslighting feeds self-doubt. It feeds the habit of not trusting yourself. So the response isn't to argue, it's to document, it's to trust your memory, and it's to distance yourself from people who consistently deny reality. If someone repeatedly tells you that things you know happened didn't happen, that things you clearly remember were never said, they're not confused, they're manipulating. And the moment you recognize that pattern, You need to protect yourself. Stop arguing about what's real. You know what's real. Just remove them from the equation, because you can't have a healthy relationship with someone who's constantly rewriting the script. Sign 6. They isolate you from other people. This one's insidious. It starts small. They make little comments about your other friends. I don't know, they seem kind of fake. I wouldn't trust them if I were you. They don't really get you like I do. And at first, it feels like they're protecting you, like they're looking out for you. But watch what happens over time. You start seeing those friends less. You start doubting those relationships. And the person making the comments, they fill the space. They become your primary relationship, your main source of input. And slowly, almost without realizing it, you're isolated. You've cut ties or distanced yourself from other people. And now you're dependent on this one person for validation, advice, and connection. That's not love. That's control. People who genuinely care about you want you to have a strong support system. They want you connected, grounded, surrounded by people who care. But toxic people want you dependent. They want to be the only voice in your ear. Because when you're isolated, you're easier to influence, easier to manipulate, easier to keep in place. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane." And isolation makes you vulnerable to insanity, to losing perspective, to accepting things you wouldn't accept if you had other people reflecting reality back to you. Watch for the people who subtly discourage your other relationships, who always have a reason why you shouldn't trust someone else, who seem threatened when you spend time with others, who make you feel guilty for having a life outside of them. That's a red flag. Because healthy people encourage connection, toxic people hoard it. If you realize you've been isolated, start rebuilding. Reach out to people you've distanced from. Reconnect. Rebuild your network. Because the best defense against manipulation is multiple perspectives, multiple relationships, multiple sources of truth. When you're connected, you're protected. When you're isolated, you're vulnerable. Sign 7. Your gut keeps warning you. This is the sign most people ignore, and it's the one you should trust the most. Your gut has been picking up on things your conscious mind hasn't fully processed yet. All the micro-expressions, the inconsistencies, the times their words didn't match their energy, the moments that felt off, but you couldn't explain why. Your gut has been cataloging it all, and it's trying to tell you something. Listen, the Stoics believed in reason, but they also understood intuition. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." But what you feel, that's data. It's your nervous system responding to patterns, to threats, to things that don't add up. And when that feeling won't go away, when you keep getting that nagging sense that something's wrong with this person, that's not paranoia. That's wisdom. Most people ignore their gut because they can't prove it. They don't have concrete evidence. They don't want to seem judgmental or unfair. So they override the warning. They give the person another chance, and another, until eventually that person proves exactly what your gut was trying to tell you from the beginning. And you look back and think, I knew, I felt it. Why didn't I listen? Your instinct doesn't need permission to be right. It doesn't need to explain itself. It's picking up on things below the level of conscious awareness. And when it's screaming at you about someone, when you feel uncomfortable, unsafe, on edge around them, even though they haven't done anything overtly wrong, trust that. Because your body knows before your mind does. This doesn't mean you act rashly. It doesn't mean you cut people off based on a single feeling. But it does mean you pay attention. You watch more closely. You protect yourself more carefully. You don't dismiss the warning just because you can't articulate it yet, because often, by the time you can articulate it, the damage has already been done. So when your gut tells you someone isn't safe, isn't genuine, isn't operating with integrity, listen. Create distance. Protect your peace. Limit their access. You don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't need to prove your instinct was right. You just need to honor it. Because your gut has kept you alive this long. It's earned your trust. Integration. These signs aren't isolated incidents. They're patterns. And when you see them, especially when you see multiple signs in the same person, you're not dealing with someone who occasionally makes mistakes. You're dealing with someone whose character is fundamentally misaligned with yours. Someone who operates from a place of insecurity, manipulation, or self-interest that makes them unsafe. The Stoic response isn't rage. It's not confrontation. It's not trying to fix them or expose them or get revenge. It's simply this: distance. Strategic, unapologetic distance. You don't announce it. You don't create drama. You just quietly withdraw your energy, your trust, your access. You stop sharing. You stop investing. You become polite but unreachable, friendly but unavailable, because you've recognized that this person is not aligned with your path, and your path is too important to let the wrong people derail it. Marcus Aurelius understood that you can't control other people. You can only control your response. And the most powerful response to toxic behavior isn't punishment. It's absence. You remove yourself. You remove your energy. You remove the opportunity for them to continue affecting you. And you do it without bitterness, without resentment, just clarity, just the simple recognition that this person doesn't belong in your inner circle. This isn't about being cold. It's about being wise. It's about understanding that your energy is finite, that your peace is precious, that the people you keep close shape your reality, and you have every right to be selective, to guard your space, to protect what you're building from people who, consciously or unconsciously, are working against it. Call to reflect. So take inventory. Look at the people in your life, not with paranoia, with honesty, who celebrates your wins authentically, who asks about your life but shares their own, who respects you in public, who stands by their word, who honors your reality, who encourages your other relationships, and who does your gut warn you about. You'll have answers, and some of those answers will be uncomfortable, because you'll realize that people you've trusted, people you've given access to, people you've defended, have been showing you these signs all along, and you ignored them. You made excuses. You gave them the benefit of the doubt, and now you're paying the cost. But here's the thing. Recognition is the first step to protection. You can't change the past. You can't undo the access you gave or the information you shared. But you can change what happens next. You can adjust. You can create boundaries. You can distance yourself, and you can rebuild your circle with people who've actually earned their place in it. This year, protect your peace like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Stop giving access to people who haven't proven they're safe. Stop sharing your plans with people who don't celebrate your progress. Stop defending people your gut keeps warning you about. And start honoring the truth that not everyone deserves a place in your life, no matter how long they've been there, no matter what history you share. If they're showing these signs, they don't belong in your future. The Stoics taught that wisdom is knowing what to care about and what to release. And sometimes the wisest thing you can do is release people who are operating with integrity, not with drama, not with confrontation, just with quiet, strategic distance. Because your life is too short and your mission is too important to waste energy on people who are working against you. Watch your back, trust your gut, protect your peace, stay focused, stay grounded. And remember, the quiet work you do to protect your energy today is shaping the strength they'll never see coming.